It has been 3 years since the start of COVID. What do you remember most of about the beginning of the pandemic? The toilet paper crises, it was the most notable. The day after my state began its lockdown, I was driving on the highway home after work and I realized I was the only one on the road for as far as I could see. It was raining, but I was still doing 70 because I was alone. Suddenly, another car appears, and even though it's literally just us on the highway, it tries to overtake me. It spins out and does 3 complete circles, flying backward across 2 lanes. Just narrowly avoids missing another car that showed up. It was foreshadowing to how stupid people were going to be during the pandemic. It's crazy to think back on December 2019 to Jan 2020 and how sort of unknown everything was at the time, and nobody had any idea how bad it was going to get. I remember at work we had an in-person meeting around March 10 discussing what we would do if coronavirus blew up into a big problem. Quote, "Little did we realize at the time some of us in that room were already infected. Then I ended up spending 38 days in hospital. 16 of those in ICU on a ventilator. Full story of my experience and recovery. Here. https://r/askreddit.com/r/askreddit/comments/oy4b31/_h49deck/. Context = 1. How packed my grocery store was. Having been on Reddit for so long. A sense of, I told you so, when I started talking to wife about this mysterious pneumonia afflicting China in November 2019. I remember the sinking feeling of realizing that there were so many more idiots in the world. I thought, we've all seen the movies and TV shows with some kind of contagion, and there's always some idiot that's freaking about and trying to escape the quarantine which will infect everyone else. Who knew that guy was actually a lot more than just one. Waiting for the daily update from our governor. Then when everything shut down, how empty the roads were and how cheap gas was. Abject fucking terror. Thinking for sure that I and probably half my friends were going to lose a parent. Thinking it was going to be a rough 2 or 3 months before it was all over and we were back to normal. It was kind of weird. I was in college at the time and everyone was wondering if schools would shut down or switch to online classes. The transition was gradual. Then all at once, in March, everything in my area was still business as normal. Then I went on spring break. When I came back, everything was shut down and I couldn't buy toilet paper. The drastic drop in the amount of customers and then closing the restaurant and taking all the leftover food home. Also fear. The day everything got locked down, I got sick as a dog. Couldn't get out of bed for like 4 days. I had one N95 mask I bought when there had been fires in my area the year prior and ran to the store to stock up on any food that was left. There wasn't much. No tests were available. My doctor just said, call 911 and go to the ER if you think it's getting out of hand. Thankfully, I didn't have any of the actual symptoms. I left my apartment after a week and it was crazy just how quiet my city was. The early coronial era. I miss the honeymoon phase of the pandemic. Empty roads. People washing hands. Me and my girlfriend were traveling in Asia. We were in Vietnam at the time. I read a small piece in Washington Post about a new Chinese virus. I chose not to tell my girlfriend about it, since we were at one of the biggest hotels in Ho Chi Minh City and it was the Chinese New Year. One of the staff members pulled me in at breakfast and said, "You Westerners don't understand the gravity of this. It's going to be very, very bad. There are 4,000 Chinese at this hotel now. Any one of them could be infected. It felt like a bad movie. My heart just sank. I told my girlfriend at dinner that night. They said it would be for a few weeks. People spray painting, COVID hoax, on rocks, walls. I was working 75-hour weeks and being told that I was lucky to have a job by management. Walmart only allowing 10 people to shop at a time. Some kid came into school wearing a mask and a teacher said, "Don't be ridiculous. It'll be over in a week. They're just closing the schools to be safe." Cue a year and a half of remote learning. How utterly in denial people were up until shit hit the fan. Obviously the denial, misinformation continued for months later. But late February and early March were on a different level. I remember the stock market started tanking on March 9 as we were seeing mass casualties in Italy. Daily cases in the States were doubling every 48 hours. So it was obviously growing at an exponential and uncontrolled rate. And people were still saying shit like, "It's just the flu," and "The government has it under control." The fucking POTUS tweeted this. https://2020/039535C0-8371355C0-830C-863F77370CA8E0B4-Trump_tweet.jpg. Width equals 612 and height equals 375 and fit equals crop and format equals PJPG and auto equals WebP. FFS. There would end up being millions of people infected and hundreds of thousands of deaths in the US. In that single year alone. By March 12 I decided to keep my son out of daycare indefinitely and would not be returning to the office anytime soon. The next day Trump finally declared a national emergency and my company announced mandatory telework. I'll also never forget the quiet calm of the world as there were absolutely zero cars on the road. People were walking in the middle of the street to prevent crowding sidewalks. Air quality was amazing. I remember seeing the ISS fly over my house at one point and I swear you could make out the solar panels with your naked eye.